Seems everyone's clamoring for a slice of that AI pie these days, right?
Right.
Especially businesses.
Yeah.
They're all eager to cash in on the hype.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what about the folks actually tasked with making it all happen? You know, the
Yeah.
CIOs?
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of the unsung heroes in all of this, facing all this pressure to deliver AI solutions and fast.
Yeah, definitely.
So today we're doing a deep dive into a recent article from News. It's called CIOs Under Pressure. Very appropriate to try to untangle all this AI hype from the reality
Right.
and see what's really going on.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. The article does a really good job, I think, of illustrating this sort of fundamental tension that's going on right now, where you've got businesses who are really clamoring for, the magic of AI. They want to maximize profits, streamline operations, all that good stuff.
Good.
The reality is that implementing AI effectively and responsibly is way more nuanced than just, flipping a switch.
It really is. It's like everyone got the memo that AI is the future, but no one actually read the fine print.
Precisely. And that's where the CIO comes in, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones who really have to bridge this gap between, like, the aspirations of what the company wants and then the often very complex realities of actually making AI work.
Yeah.
And a great example the article uses is data integrity and security.
Okay.
Because you can have the most sophisticated AI system out there, the most cutting edge, but if you're feeding it bad data, if it's flawed, unreliable,
Right.
it's a recipe for disaster.
Oh, absolutely. It's like building a house on a foundation that's like ready to crumble.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how fancy the house is, it's going to fall apart.
Exactly.
So are you saying that CIOs are kind of caught in this like balancing act
Yeah.
where they're feeling all this pressure to dive headfirst into AI, but also knowing they have to make sure that everything underneath is actually solid?
Yeah, absolutely. And the potential consequences of getting it wrong are huge, right?
Oh, I bet.
Like imagine a company that rushes into this AI-driven decision-making, totally gung-ho, and then later on they find out, whoops, our data was incomplete, or worse, it was compromised.
Oh.
The damage, financially, reputationally, it could be devastating.
Talk about a CIO's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
So it sounds like while everyone else is off dreaming of AI taking over the world, CIOs are the ones stuck holding their breath, making sure it doesn't all go off the rails.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in, for sure. Walking that tightrope between, like you said, innovation and responsibility with incredibly high stakes.
And as if all of that wasn't enough pressure, there's another layer to this that the article digs into, and that is the limitations of some of these AI tools themselves. Specifically, something called large language models, LLMs. They're everywhere you turn these days, but are they really all they're cracked up to be? We'll get into that after this. All right, so we're back, and I got to say, I'm still kind of hung up on this whole LLM thing. The article actually quotes this AI expert, Gary Marcus, he calls them, get this, brilliantly stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a mixed message, right? What's the deal with these LLMs? Why are they getting praised and, like, simultaneously thrown under the bus?
It's a great question. It really gets to the core of like what LLMs are, but more importantly, what they're not,
Okay.
So you've got these incredibly sophisticated algorithms, right? They can process these massive, massive data sets of text, of code. They can generate writing that sounds like a human wrote it. They can hold these conversations that feel, at least on the surface, natural. Some of them can even write music. But, and I think this is what Gary Marcus is getting at, there's a catch. For all their brilliance, LLMs, they don't actually understand anything.
So they're like the ultimate bluffers of the AI world, all show, no substance.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The article makes this analogy to a parrot mimicking human speech, right? Like, it's impressive until you realize the parrot has no clue what it's actually saying.
Right.
And LLMs, for all their abilities, they often fall into those same traps. They can repeat information, mimic patterns. But when it comes to context, nuance, really grasping the meaning, that's where they struggle.
So how does this all play back into the pressure that CIOs are facing?
Well, imagine you're tasked with taking these powerful but ultimately flawed tools and trying to integrate them into how your company actually functions.
Right.
You see the potential, but you're also very aware of the limitations. And I think this is where the article's emphasis on a shift in AI development is really interesting. It's no longer just about making LLMs bigger, feeding them more and more data. The real challenge now, and where the focus needs to be, is making them smarter. More discerning.
So less brute force, more finesse.
Exactly. It's about teaching these LLMs to understand context, to think critically, to tell the difference between something that's actually true and something that just sounds plausible.
Right.
And the article really highlights how this shift towards an AI that can, for lack of a better word, think more critically, how that is absolutely essential for responsible and effective implementation.
That makes sense. I mean, if we're talking about integrating AI into making decisions, especially in situations where the stakes are high,
Yeah.
that level of genuine understanding, it's not just a nice to have, it's essential.
Exactly.
But that also brings up a whole other layer of complexity, doesn't it? Like, how do we ensure that these powerful AI systems, even the smart ones, are used responsibly, ethically? It's not like we can just, trust them to figure it out on their own.
You're absolutely right. And this is where the idea of AI governance comes in.
Okay.
It's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot, but it's important to understand what it actually means in practice.
Yeah, for sure.
So AI governance, it basically refers to all the frameworks, the guidelines, the processes that we put in place to ensure that AI is developed and used responsibly, ethically.
So kind of like rules of the road, but for AI guardrails to make sure things don't go off track.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing that, sci-fi scenario of AI becoming sentient and turning on us, although
Right.
some people do worry about that. It's really more about the everyday implications of using AI in ways that align with, our values and that don't unintentionally cause harm.
Okay, so less Terminator, more making sure that AI serves humanity, not the other way around. But how do we actually put these guardrails in place? What does that look like in the real world?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The article highlights some really fascinating examples of how organizations are grappling with this, how they're tackling AI governance in practical ways.
Okay.
One that jumped out at me was the U.S. Army's #Calibrate AI program.
The Army?
Yeah, and now before you go picturing like autonomous robots on the battlefield,
Right, right.
this program is actually about using AI for more everyday tasks, but still crucial ones like military acquisition.
So using AI to help them, buy equipment?
Exactly.
That doesn't sound quite as exciting as fighting robots, but okay.
Maybe not, but what's really interesting here is their focus on error mitigation. They're actively developing ways to identify and correct inaccuracies in AI-generated content, what they call hallucinations. It's about building safeguards directly into the system from the ground up.
So it's about making sure that the AI they're using to make these decisions is as reliable as possible. That makes sense for the military. But what about the rest of us? Are there examples of this kind of AI governance happening in, say, the business world?
Absolutely. A lot of companies, especially those that are really at the forefront of AI adoption, they're implementing things like internal AI ethics boards or committees
Okay.
to oversee these AI projects and make sure that ethical considerations are baked into the development process from day one.
Interesting.
They're bringing in experts in ethics, in law, in social impact to really guide how these AI systems are built and deployed.
It's encouraging to hear that at least some people are really thinking seriously about this stuff. But it also feels like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, yeah.
As AI gets more sophisticated, more integrated into our lives, these questions of governance, of responsibility, they're only going to get more complex, right?
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's so crucial to be having these conversations now, while the technology is still relatively in its early stages. The choices we make today, the rules we establish, they're going to have a huge impact on how AI shapes our future.
It's a lot to unpack. And it feels like we've only just begun to scratch the surface of this whole AI revolution. But up next, let's get into some more concrete examples of how AI is already making waves in different industries and how those real-world applications tie back into these pressures and responsibilities we've been talking about. Stay with us. So we've talked a lot about the theory and the anxieties around AI, but the article also makes it clear that this isn't just some far-off thing. AI is already making a real-world impact, which brings us back to the CIOs, right?
Yeah, for sure.
They're not just dealing with hypotheticals, they're right there on the front lines, figuring out how to actually integrate these tools into everyday operations.
Absolutely. And I think what's really interesting is it's not just about, automating a few tasks here and there or making things a bit more efficient. We're talking about AI actually changing how entire industries function, opening up these possibilities that honestly just a few years ago would sounded like science fiction.
Okay, so less about replacing jobs and more about, rewriting the rules of the game entirely.
Exactly.
Give me an example. What kind of real-world impact are we talking about here?
Well, the article talks about this company, Thales, that's using AI to manage swarms of drones.
Drums.
Yeah, like multiple autonomous aircraft,
Right.
all coordinated by AI for things like surveillance, search and rescue missions, even infrastructure inspection.
Wow.
You think about the potential there in disaster relief, for example, or even something as everyday as package delivery. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's like straight out of a movie, but it's actually happening. That's kind of mind-blowing. Are there other examples like that where AI is being used in these really innovative ways?
Oh, tons. Actually, that you might also like section you mentioned.
Yeah.
That led me to this other article about the U.S. Treasury Department. They've been using AI to fight fraud, of all things.
Really?
Yeah. Analyzing these huge data sets of financial transactions, looking for patterns, anomalies, stuff that would just be impossible for humans to catch. Apparently, they've had really impressive results, like recovering millions of dollars and really putting a dent in fraudulent activity.
So it's like AI, as this financial watchdog, sniffing out the bad guys.
Pretty much.
That's a side of AI I haven't really considered before. It's encouraging to hear that it's not all, potential downsides and what ifs. There are some real tangible benefits here.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's really crucial to remember that AI, at its core, is a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for bad, right?
Right.
The key is responsible development, ethical deployment, and that ongoing oversight, all those things we were talking about with AI governance.
It all circles back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The potential of AI is undeniable, but so are the risks if we're not extremely careful.
Exactly. And that's what makes this conversation so important and why CIOs, I think, are going to play such a pivotal role in this new AI-driven world. Because they're not just implementing technology, they're the ones shaping the future.
And it's not just on them, is it? It's on all of us to, stay informed, ask the tough questions, and really make sure that this incredibly powerful technology is used in a way that benefits all of us.
Couldn't agree more.
Well, this deep dive into the world of AI and how it's impacting CIOs has been really eye-opening, to say the least. We've talked about the pressures they're facing, the potential AI holds, and the very real challenges of navigating this whole new technological frontier.
Yeah, it's a fascinating time to be alive, that's for sure. And as AI gets more advanced, these conversations are only going to get more important.
Absolutely. So to everyone listening, we'll leave you with this thought. As AI becomes more and more integrated into our world, it's really up to each and every one of us to stay informed, keep asking those tough questions, and ultimately help shape how this powerful technology is used. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the articles and all the resources we talked about today. And until next time, keep exploring.